All right. It usually takes a while for people to populate. And by the way, tell me if you're streaming directly through YouTube. Are you guys streaming through YouTube? Okay, then it is working. Excellent. So my little bee problem is over. So I had two swarms 24 hours ago. And one is in the hollow part of a Dutch elm that we cut about a year ago because it was about to fall. It was about to fall on our pool. So we cut it and it's got a hollow center. And so there's one swarm of bees in there and they have a queen. And then a rival set of bees showed up, I guess about a day and a half ago, and they were not merging. And they were not aggressive when I got close to the swarm. So that's how you know they're not Africanized. It's kind of a, usually you send the demo out there to check that area out. But so anyway, they weren't aggressive. So I bought, a container of Dawn and I made a like 1/3, 2/3 Dawn to water mixture. Pardon me, I'm having a little beverage, having a little afternoon beverage. So I did an initial. I had a big pitcher, and I just did initial just gigantic douching, and then I pulled back for about half an hour to see what happened, and a whole bunch of them started dropping in clusters. So I went back with a bottle that I filled with the Dawn mixture snipe, and I got the rest of them. And the ones that were flying around began to land on the Dawn. So at about the 1 hour mark, I went out there and I took a picture that I just put up on Twitter. And it's literally the entire swarm that was on the wall. And you couldn't see it in the video, but it was about that thick and about that long, but turn like that. And they were all dead in a pile. So I can attest that if you have a bee problem, then that Dawn thing works. It worked great. I was very happy. Went out this morning and did my dogs a favor. I took an AR-15. I've got a 22 caliber insert, the AR-15. I can't recommend those highly enough. Don't buy a 22 AR-15 or a 22 upper. Just buy the insert. All you got to do is you pull the bolt out, and it comes with a magazine, a 10-round magazine, unless you know who to call, and then you get a 30. And I went out this morning at 7 a.m. when the sun started to warm up, and I got my other dog. My dog Lucille caught her own rabbit yesterday, but Wyatt can't do that because he only has 3 feet. And Lucille takes 4 hours to take care of business. Wyatt does it in about 20 minutes. So anyway, I went out with subsonic 22 LR and got him a rabbit this morning. So he got his fresh meat. So yeah, I forget where I got. I got this at a gun show. And apparently the trademark enforcement on Hello Kitty is not enforced that robustly. So we're standing by for a Trump news conference at. I'll get a nap before I go. At about 2:30. Yeah, so I was talking about this on Twitter late last night and early this morning, but uh, it is going to get way worse before it gets better. There's no good news there. I would tell you this, or I tell you this so that you're not surprised. Like I said last night, you should know that can it get worse than being inside for a week? Fuck yes, it can. It can get really, really, really worse. And you should be prepared for that, because the bed capacity in LA is not good. We had a bit of a canary in the coal mine yesterday. Santa Monica ER, the head of surgery at the Santa Monica ER tweeted out desperately that he needed surgical masks and face shields, and enough people, brought them there. But if it's gotten to that, then things are bad, because again, they're single using them, because that's what you do in a pandemic. Because the pipeline to make those and get them to hospitals is probably still about 2 or 3 weeks out. So hospitals are going to be at maximum capacity probably within 2 weeks. Don't be surprised if you're seeing video of people lying in hallways at USC County, or even Cedars-Sinai in about 7 days. Okay, just don't be one of those. Stay indoors. Don't, eat the food you bought. Exercise if you have a yard, the whole thing. But don't be surprised, because it will get worse before it gets better. As sort of a heads up for all of you, that there is an end to the pipeline. They keep saying, "Oh, well, don't worry, there's plenty of food in the pipeline." Well, part of the problem is that at the other end of the pipeline are a lot of people in Fresno and Bakersfield, and Camarillo, or as I say, Camarillo, who are cutting the iceberg and the romaine and the cabbage and the artichokes and all that, and pulling up the carrots. And at some point, they start getting sick. In fact, they've already started getting sick, even though they work outdoors. And so if fresh produce is what you're basing your 60-day plan on, then I got news for you. You should probably start planting right now. Like, go to Home Depot today and get some starters. Don't wait for the seeds to germinate. Go buy starters right now. Tomatoes will be up and running really fast. If you have chicken poo and coffee grounds and all that, you'll get tomatoes real fast. Otherwise, buy cans, because the dirty little secret that Garcetti and even Newsom are not talking about is the fact that the people who maintain the control are getting sick. Sheriff's deputies, police officers, the whole thing. And if you're saying, oh, well, the National Guard is right behind them. Well, fact of the matter is that while on paper, the California National Guard is supposed to be a brigade, a combat brigade, it in reality is not. It effectively has a battalion, about 600 to 700 guys for all of LA. And they don't operate as in separate platoons and stuff. They can't spread out. There is one for San Diego, and then there's one for kind of Northern California. There's a bunch of ash and trash, like MPs and truck drivers and all these other units, but they're not trained in civil disturbance the way that infantry and armor and cavalry and artillery are. So this is not like 1992. In 1992, we had a lot of, like me, returned Desert Storm veterans who just needed a morning's training. We get an annual weekend where we get civil disturbance training, and then the sexual harassment PowerPoint, all this shit. So for this, we on riot morning, we had a refresher in the morning, We were issued our 36-inch riot sticks, which is an actual issued item. It says U.S. on it. There's a leather thong. We got our face shield for helmets. And then we got our 3 20-round magazines with 5 rounds each. But there was a lot of us. There were several battalions in downtown LA. So there was a pretty dense National Guard presence. Imagine that spread out from Thousand Oaks to Tustin. You would not see a National Guardsman, and you would never see a single National Guardsman. You wouldn't see a Humvee or a National Guard unit, maybe except every 10 miles. So plan accordingly. These are fixed things. Can we count on Nevada to come in here? Sure, the governor can request that. But what about the outbreak in Nevada? Can we count on Oregon to cover down on Northern California? If the governor requests that, but the Oregon governor would probably refuse. So my worst case scenario is that everything I'm saying comes true. The hospitals are overwhelmed. They start doing what the Italians did, and they stop treating people over 60. Law enforcement no longer answers 911, and there you are, wherever you are in your neighborhood. And now all of a sudden you have to organize with your neighbors about a neighborhood watch, an armed neighborhood watch, and the whole thing. Because one thing we know about LA, while the rest of the country can sit around and talk about releasing prisoners and let's just hope they're on good behavior, what we know here in LA and in California specifically is that when you release prisoners, they go back to committing crimes. And that's with a normal functioning society. Can you imagine 30 or 40 days ago, if we're from now, if we're in full dysfunction and the homeless have overwhelmed LA County's health system, and the normals, the people who haven't ruined their bodies and their livers by being drug addicts, need a ventilator and they don't get it, then your goddamn right social order is going to be breaking down. Now, it's not talked about 1918, 1919, but in many, many, many cases in 1918, 1919, local social order broke down. The difference back in 1918 and 19 was that there was a greater density of armed Americans in the cities, in Burbank and Glendale and all that. Not so much these days. So the normals are at a pretty terrible disadvantage. So that's my worst case scenario. As always, I hope that doesn't happen, but that's not the way that I'm going to bet. Under martial law, Sam Castaneda just asked, can you address what happens under martial law, re civil rights 1A, 2A, 4A, etc. The First Amendment effectively isn't, unless the county authority determines you're putting false information, right? And then they go to a judge and they can get an injunction, and in the worst case, they can seize you. Second Amendment, that's the big one, right? Well, remember that after Katrina, somebody somewhere found the authority to go from door to door and search for firearms. And in many cases, these were law enforcement agencies that came from outside New Orleans to assist New Orleans. And somebody determined that these still shots and videos of neighbors guarding each other was somehow unacceptable. So this is LA. Stand by for that, because remember, on the first day of the riots, you had those rooftop Koreans, and Zev Yaroslavsky skipped over the mayor. He was a city councilman, and he called the governor and said, tell your National Guard to go disarm those G's. There's a legend that he said goose. Regardless, the order did come down to disarm the rooftop Koreans, but it was never enforced because they had every right to guard their personal property with that. So that's kind of the punchline there. What about Garcetti? Do I trust Garcetti? Of course not. I'm not an LA resident, so I don't care. But if I were you, I wouldn't trust him, because nothing good happens from guns in his world. And our unsheltered brothers and sisters just need a hand up. So I wouldn't trust that guy. I don't know what kind of authority. Oh, pardon me. I don't know. In martial law, I don't believe he would have a hell of a lot of authority. But I would just say this: be prepared to hide weapons. Don't be surprised if you do get door to door. So, anyway, there's that. Um, but yeah, make no mistake that pandemic, the 1918 pandemic, caused a relatively brief breakdown, and it really was October, November of 1918. Then it peaked in December, and then it went away, and everybody thought it went away, and then it came back in the winter of 1919, and it was far more deadly. And then because there were three waves of it: April of 1918, then fall of 1918, and then it goes away slowly. Things go back to normal. People kind of forgot what they did to each other, like that one Twilight Zone episode. Um, and then it came back. So just be prepared for that. But back then, back in 1918, 1919, there was no supply pipeline. If you were in Burbank, you probably walked to the farm stand that represented the farm, on what is Olive and now Victory. And if you were in Glendale, you probably had a pretty substantial farm, or garden, I should say. We don't live like that anymore. Um, do you think the whole country will be on enforced lockdown at some point? I'm in Virginia. I'm worried about making sure I can get into my mom who has cancer. Um, I do believe that because we didn't go ugly early back in January, the only mitigator at this point, because you see, kids are doing beer shots, off of butts in Miami Beach for spring break. You see the Santa Monica Pier really was stuffed with people yesterday. People aren't taking this seriously. And it's not about who gets it and who's lethal. It's about who's walking around carrying it. And so I really don't see any other way besides the president instructing governors to declare a curfew and mandatory quarantine. Back in 1918, Seattle, Salt Lake City, they actually put quarantine signs on front and back doors. Individual homes. If one person was sick in there, they put a quarantine sign on that door. And the neighborhood, what they found, the reason that was effective was because the neighborhood enforced it. So that at this point, to prevent us from becoming Italy, that's what we have to do. The Italians, now we're hearing that, of course, at midnight Italy time, which is just a few hours away, the hammer's coming down. They're already fining people. They're already fining people a lot of money for being out there. So I don't know what more they can do. Let me see if I can open up a window and simulcast Trump. I will do that. If I can't, that thing is about to start, and I do want to watch it. So this is sort of a pre-presser Q&A. There's been a pretty meaty rumor going around.
Biggest thing that I want to say, and just I mentioned before.
Let me do this. What the hell? You probably hear it, right? How's the connection, by the way? All right, there we go. And you can hear that audio, right?
Please don't go out and wear masks. We don't need them.
I'll turn them down. Well, John, a ventilator assists a patient in breathing. Like, it's not really hard. So anyway, yeah, the reality of a far worse situation. Tell you what I'll do is I'll mute that bullshit. I'll mute that idiot and just concentrate on this. So I mean, you all know what a ventilator does. If you have difficulty breathing, it actually provides positive pressure and inhales and then you exhale. So that's why it needs to be timed like that. A really, really good resource, by the way, for the day-to-day math on this is the University of Washington Virology Clinic at the UW Medical Center. And that's where I was a medical lab tech, at the UW Medical Center in Seattle. And so there. So let me ask you this. Who's heard a good rumor? Any good rumors? And by the way, if you are a female below the age of 45 and you care to help me repopulate the earth, then you can email me at darksecretplace@protonmail.com. You know what? Well, I turned off the I turned off that audio until the press conference starts. And in fact, when the press conference starts, I'm gonna bail on this. Is that for Mary Waymeyer? Is that confirmed? Inland Empire, like San Bernardino, the 909, they're going to start enforcing a curfew. I haven't heard me that, because that's the kind of thing, by the way, that kind of helps to publicize. Of course, I do have a IR thermometer. Which, by the way, for the outside, for the skin, that's normal. Really? Harvey Weinstein on Rikers Island? I'll have to check that out. Harvey Weinstein tested positive for COVID.
Wow.
That's not.
Deserves it.
Yeah, deserves it. You want to zip up your jacket and get some FaceTime, Reagan?
No.
Okay. We're going to go do our mandatory walk around and exercise, aren't we, Reagan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah, Merkel is on a 14-day or 14 Tag. Krankenhausen quarantine. Yeah, anyone who's going to impose a curfew is going to They're gonna publicize it. They're gonna do it through us, through KFI and the LA Times, and probably ABC7, and all that. So I'm looking for I forgot. It's been so long since I've been on StreamYard. I'm looking for the number of people in chat. Can anyone see that? Dan Burke, U.S. Army tanks headed to California-Mexico border. No. Whenever people see Army vehicles on flatbed trains, then all of a sudden it's Jade Helm, and they're taking over, and and all that. No, that's how the Army moves combat brigades from Fort Stewart, Georgia, to Fort Irwin, or from Fort Knox or Fort Bliss to Fort Polk. That's the Army moves entire brigades as if it's a deployment, and they put them on trains because you don't drive tanks on the road; you just put unnecessary miles on them. So you put them on a train. The train goes choo 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 to Fort Irwin, California. They come off the train, and then they go boom 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 boom, Army Army Army. So you always see those convoys of entire brigades. So you see like the MP piece and infantry, and then you see tanks, and then you see MRAPs, and then artillery and all that, because they move as a brigade out there and they treat it like a deployment. It doesn't mean they're taking over. So, yeah, it's really funny. Johnny here talking about air traffic. It is funny how I really notice in the mornings and the afternoon, sort of at peak flight time, peak departure time from LAX, and then the afternoon peak arrival time. I've noticed the decreased air traffic. It's honestly been noticeable out here. So and I'm going to record. The reason I'm going to go off is because I'm going to record the Trump press conference. So let's see. Put a banner on here. If you don't, by the way, if you were a ConnectPal subscriber, I apologize for the last couple months. Other things were going on, but it's back up, and there you go. So that's the address there. If you want to subscribe, go to connectpal.com, Dark Secret Place. That's not, I can put a link in, but I'm going to be going back to, until this is done, I'm going to be doing a daily 10 or 15 minute update. So that's true. So Trump is 5 minutes late. What's going on there? We're still waiting for that, as you see. So, yeah, because there's that much information on a day-to-day basis that it requires a daily and probably several times a day update. So it might just be 5 minutes or an hour. What would you say the next step would be? I don't know about your water situation. I'm assuming that keeping LADWP, if you live in the valley or you live in Santa Clarita or whatever, I'm guessing that you're gonna have water. I have these gigantic cisterns that are food quality, and tomorrow I'm going to fill one. I'm on a well, and we have a generator, and that's all fine. But because I wouldn't bet my life on it, I'm going to fill a reservoir, a no shit cistern, and 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, if it hasn't been necessary, I'm going to drain it. And I'm going to refill it. So there you go. Let's see. Next step in prep. Do you all have a dependable car? And do you have a rucksack, maybe with 2 or 3 sleeping bags in it? So that if you have to get out of wherever you live, I'm going to say LA or the Valley or whatever, and just drive out of LA or Santa Clarita and pull over in the car. Can you do that? I don't mean go way up to the Carrizo thing instead of a camp, but I mean, can you leave your neighborhood and quickly get out of your house? If you hear rumors from neighbors that looters are coming up the street, honestly, that's not self-defense to sit there behind your riding mower, and shoot down the street. They're going to outnumber you. They're going to outgun you, etc. You should be prepared to just say goodbye to everything. So I think a good piece of prep right now would be to update your homeowner's insurance. But if you shoot the first guy, are they all going to scatter? Maybe for a while. I don't know. But it would just be easier to be prepared to grab 2 or 3 suitcases that are by the door, one with clothes, one with food like tuna in the zip packs that doesn't require cooking, and then maybe another one with ammo, and there should already be water in the car. So that's how that works. If you have time to sit down and listen to the Wu Flu saga, Mr. Medicare has been doing streams about Wu Flu Boogaloo since around New Year's. Who's that? Who's Mr. Medicare? X86, the Jesus. I've never heard of that person. All I know is I've been talking about it since late December when I first started seeing it on social media. So you'll understand if I'm a little overwhelmed with who it is that I'm listening to. Yeah, that's another one Kurt Borman points out. Don't let your tank go below half. Gas is cheap and getting cheaper. And so you may as well consider half to be empty and just always top it off. I do that. We have an oh shit truck, and it's a Suburban, a V8 Suburban, and it takes 87. So I've got a tank. It's always full, and I've got a 5-liter jerry can. Actually, it's 5 gallons, a NATO jerry can. And then in my Volvo, I don't let it go below half. And then I have a 3-liter gas can for that. So that's just a thing. I need, at the minimum, I always leave on miles left. I have, a scrollable menu, and I get rid of the odometer and I put how many miles I have left, because that's kind of the, oh shit, I got to be able to get home. So there is that. Do any of you have, if you have relatives, that are in the West, if you have relatives in Utah, I highly recommend getting on good terms with them. If you have to get out of LA, that's the thing about when, if you have looters coming up the street, then it might be your time to get out of LA for a few weeks. I don't know how quickly they could restore order. It would require the federal military. It would require a declaration of martial law, and then the injection of every Marine from Camp Pendleton. Back in the riots in '92, 7th Infantry Division was up at Fort Ord in Monterey. Well, they're not there anymore. So you'd rely on the Marine Corps, and all that. So, by the way, this movie, The Hunt, this looks so stupid. Looks so dumb. Dumb. Boost looks good. Old school internet garbage people like me. He documents a lot of internet culture, but for the last 3 months, he's been obsessed with the Wu flu. Well, I mean, I do follow actual epidemiologists and statistical virologists. So I'm not interested in, because even though I'm a lab tech, even though I was a medical lab tech, I'm not a mathematical virologist or epidemiologist. I just ran the tests. I knew I knew polymerase as a PCR test from an EIA test. That's, I knew the results. I knew what was happening in the test. So I rely on people who have more than internet rumors, because here's the problem right now is China is working overtime on the information piece, because they're dead set to plant in the idiotic third world's mind that America invented COVID-19 and planted it in China, because that's what we would do, right? And we don't play a good counter information operations game, because my first move would be to say, oh, we did that, but we North Korea. Okay, that's a hot take. The reality is far more plausible, that a unknown virus jumped from animal to human, like they do. It presented a whole bunch of new patients there in Wuhan. Is that the goddamn thing ever? It's a hat with infrared LEDs. Look at that. Capillus. $800. What the barrel fuck was that? But anyway, so the Chinese are so embarrassed about this, then their next move is, instead of owning up, and saying, hey, the 1918 flu originated in Kansas and we still call it Spanish flu. Hey, how about that? Instead of doing that and saying, okay, it originated here, the whole thing, they're denying they had a piece of it, and and the whole thing. So that's why I say one of their strategic efforts right now, they have a lot of resources going into being the first to discover a vaccine. And here's what the Chinese have going for them that we don't have going for us. They couldn't give less fuck about human testing. They're going to go and they're going to give it to prisoners, and then they're going to expose the prisoners to COVID-19, and then they're going to count survivors. They're not going to do it in a scientific way. They're not going to do a double-blind randomized test of a random population and then a trial. They're just going to make a vaccine, tell us it's effective, and start shipping it to Iran and Saudi Arabia, or actually probably ship it to their friends first, to Iran and Pakistan, and all that, and then parts of Africa, and then they'll be the white knight, saving the world from this American COVID. Because after all, why would the Chinese deny it existed and then develop a vaccine? So This is one annoyance that I have with Garcetti and not so much Newsom, but this White House is doing it too. They're announcing a time for a presser and they're missing their hit times. And what that indicates to me is that Trump is not getting briefed in the morning until it's close to the presser. And then he says, okay, what do you got? And he's way behind the 8 ball. And this is part of the reason he gets up there in those briefings and he just makes shit up. And then it gets to a point where Dr. Fauci has to step forward and correct him. So it's a bit annoying for the information flow. Okay, so we're at 40 minutes. And I'm not sure what the count is here, but I will start doing these on a daily basis. And if you're home, then I guess my 2 o'clock is your 2 o'clock. So live in the afternoons would work. By the way, is anyone still working? Besides me, I actually go into KFI. So, all right. Well, we'll do that. Get rid of that. If there's anything else for the good of the order, HB is working, Randy's working, Craig Turner is working. I don't believe in combs, man. I'm not broadcasting from home because I don't have a good and I kind of combine my going out with the shopping and all that. And then I still, I know we need to get tested, but I still swear that my daughter and I got it back in February because I haven't had the flu in 10 years. She's never had it the way she had it. We were just on her ass for 4 days here in the living room watching TV. And so besides, I wash my hands all the time. I keep antiviral wipes, everywhere. So, all right. So I'm going to end this and then you'll be alerted by Twitter. And then maybe if you're really nice, we can private chat. I don't know how I do that. Comments, private chat. What does that mean? Private chat. No, can you see this? It said, hey, and that. I don't think so. Alrighty. Oh, there's the count. Okay, we're at 91. All right. That's good. That is definitely worth my time. But you're all worth my time. So anyway, I'm going to watch this Trump presser, and then I'll see you at 8 p.m. on KFI for Super Hyper Local Sunday. And stay level-headed. It's tomorrow. There's going to be some gigantic surprise. Just don't be surprised by the surprises. And we'll see you later on KFI at 8 p.m.